The grand conclave chamber of the Krill Ascendancy was silent, save for the hum of the life support systems and the faint crackle of energy that danced across the holographic projections dominating the room. Each of the 7 ascendants, their bodies shimmering with genetically engineered bioluminescence, sat on their crystalline thrones, their multifaceted eyes fixed on the swirling nebula displayed before them. It was a beautiful, terrifying vista, a swirling canvas of cosmic dust and nascent stars, but tonight it represented something far more ominous, the encroaching darkness. For cycles, the Krill had observed humanity. From a distance, of course, direct contact was unthinkable, unpredictable. The reports had been conflicting, contradictory. Some described them as savage, driven by a primal aggression that had consumed their own world and threatened to spill out into the galaxy. Others spoke of a surprising capacity for compassion, a dedication to ideals that bordered on the naive. But all agreed on one thing: humanity was an anomaly. A disruptive force in the carefully balanced order of the cosmos. Now, that disruptive force was their only hope. Ascendant Lyra, the foremost scholar of the Krill and the one who had initially advocated for observation of the humans, broke the silence. Her voice, amplified by the chamber's acoustics, resonated with a quiet authority. The Xylar Imperium's advance is relentless. Their fleets consume systems whole, leaving nothing but sterile husks in their wake. Our border worlds are falling. Our defenses are crumbling. We have exhausted every strategic option, save one. A collective intake of breath echoed through the chamber. Every ascendant knew what Lyra was referring to. It was a desperation play of the highest order, a gamble that could either save the Krill Ascendancy or condemn them to oblivion. To request assistance from humanity was to acknowledge their own weakness, to expose themselves to the unpredictable whims of a species they barely understood. Ascendant Vorin, the military strategist, shifted uneasily on his throne. His exoskeleton clicked softly as he moved. With all due respect, Ascendant Lyra, are we truly considering this? The humans are chaotic. Their tactics are unorthodox, their technology primitive. What assurance do we have that they would even be willing to help, let alone that they could make a difference against the might of the Xylar? Lyra turned her gaze upon Vorin, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to a cooler shade of blue. Primitive is a relative term, Ascendant Vorin. Their weapons may not possess the elegance of our own, but they are brutally effective. Their capacity for adaptation is unparalleled, and while their motives may be opaque, they have demonstrated a willingness to defend those they deem vulnerable. Vulnerable? We are the Krill Ascendancy, Vorin retorted, his voice rising in indignation. We are a civilization millennia old with a technological prowess that dwarfs theirs. We should not be begging for scraps from a newly spacefaring race. Pride will not save us, Ascendant Vorin. Ascendant Thuron, the master diplomat, interjected, his voice smooth and measured. The Xylar Imperium cares nothing for tradition or technological superiority. They only care for conquest. We have attempted diplomacy. We have attempted resistance. Both have failed. We are running out of options. Debate continued for what felt like an eternity, arguments and counterarguments swirling through the chamber like the nebula displayed before them. Some ascendants argued for a final, desperate stand, a suicide mission to buy time for the remaining Krill to escape to the outer reaches of the galaxy. Others argued for capitulation, a surrender to the Xylar in the hopes of preserving some semblance of their civilization. But slowly, reluctantly, the tide began to turn in favor of Lyra's proposal. The sheer desperation of their situation, the undeniable truth that they were on the verge of annihilation, forced them to confront the unthinkable. Their only hope lay in the hands of humanity. Finally, Ascendant Zara, the ancient matriarch and the undisputed leader of the Krill Ascendancy, raised her hand. The chamber fell silent. All eyes were on her, waiting for her judgment. Her bioluminescence flickered with age. Her movements were slow and deliberate, but her voice, when she spoke, carried the weight of millennia. We will contact them. The decision was made. The most difficult part, however, was yet to come. Crafting the message, framing the plea for help in a way that would appeal to the unpredictable nature of humanity, was a task that occupied the finest minds of the Krill Ascendancy for days. They debated every word, every nuance, every potential interpretation. They knew that their fate, the fate of their entire civilization, rested on their ability to communicate effectively with a species they barely understood. The message was sent, a complex string of encoded data transmitted across the vast gulf of interstellar space, carrying the weight of the Krill's desperation and the faint glimmer of hope. Now all they could do was wait and pray. On Earth, in a dimly lit room deep beneath the Nevada desert, a lone figure sat hunched over a console, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Dr. Aris Thorne, the head of the United Earth Intelligence Agency's Extraterrestrial Communication Division, was not a man prone to excitement. Decades of searching the skies for a sign of intelligent life had hardened him, had taught him to temper his expectations. But tonight, there was something different. Something that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. He had been monitoring the Krill ascendancy for years, ever since they had been detected observing Earth. He knew their technology, their societal structure, their general aloofness. He had never expected them to reach out, but they had. Their message was fragmented, heavily encrypted, but Thorne's team had managed to piece together the gist of it. The Krill were under attack. They were on the verge of collapse. They were asking for help. Thorne leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. This was it. The moment humanity had dreamed of, the moment they had prepared for. Contact with an alien civilization. A chance to prove their worth on the galactic stage. But it was also a moment of immense responsibility. To intervene in a war between alien empires was a dangerous proposition. It could draw Earth into a conflict far beyond their understanding, far beyond their capabilities. He reached for the secure communication line and dialed a number he had never thought he would use. It was time to wake up the brass. The response from Earth was slow, measured, cautious. The Krill understood. They were dealing with a civilization that had only recently ventured beyond its own solar system. They could not expect them to rush headlong into a galactic war. They answered every question patiently, providing detailed information about the Xylar Imperium, their tactics, their weaknesses. They offered access to their technology, their strategic databases, everything they could to convince humanity that they were worth saving. Weeks turned into months. The Xylar Imperium continued its relentless advance. The Krill's defenses crumbled further. Despair began to creep into their ranks. They had placed their faith in humanity, and humanity seemed to be doing nothing. Then one day a message arrived. It was short, simple, and to the point. "We are coming." The Krill Ascendancy watched with a mixture of awe and disbelief as the first human ships emerged from hyperspace near their capital system. They were not the sleek, elegant vessels that the Krill were accustomed to seeing. They were utilitarian, heavily armored, bristling with weaponry, and undeniably human. But it was not the ships themselves that inspired awe. It was the formation. A single, unified front, a wall of steel advancing into the void, and at the center of it all, a flagship unlike any they had ever seen. A behemoth of metal and energy, radiating power and purpose. It was the UNS Icarus. Admiral Sarah Jenkins, the commander of the human fleet, addressed the Krill Ascendancy in a calm, professional tone. "Ascendants of Krill, this is Admiral Jenkins of the United Earth Defense Force. We have received your request for assistance. We are here to help." Her words were simple, but they carried a weight of determination that resonated throughout the Krill Ascendancy. They had heard the stories of human resilience, of their unwavering commitment to their ideals. But seeing it firsthand, witnessing the sheer audacity of their arrival, filled them with a renewed sense of hope. The war began. The Xylar Imperium, confident in its superior numbers and technology, initially dismissed the human presence as a mere annoyance. They quickly learned their mistake. The humans fought with a ferocity and ingenuity that the Xylar had never encountered before. They adapted to the Xylar's tactics, exploited their weaknesses, and turned their own weapons against them. Admiral Jenkins proved to be a brilliant strategist, anticipating the Xylar's every move, leading her fleet with precision and unwavering resolve. The Icarus, with its advanced weaponry and impenetrable defenses, became a symbol of human defiance, a beacon of hope in the face of overwhelming odds. The tide began to turn. The Krill, inspired by the humans' unwavering determination, rallied their remaining forces and joined the fight. Together, they pushed back the Xylar Imperium, system by system, world by world. The war was far from over, but for the first time in cycles, the Krill Ascendancy felt a glimmer of hope. They had found an ally in the most unlikely of places. During a lull in the fighting, Admiral Jenkins requested a meeting with the Krill Ascendants. She arrived on their capital world, accompanied by a small delegation of human officers. The meeting was held in the Grand Conclave Chamber, the same chamber where the decision to contact humanity had been made. The Krill Ascendants watched as Admiral Jenkins entered the chamber. She was not what they had expected. She was small, unassuming, with a calm, steady gaze. But there was something about her that commanded respect, an aura of quiet authority that filled the chamber. Ascendants of Krill, Jenkins said, her voice clear and resonant. We are honored to be here. We understand that this war has taken a heavy toll on your civilization. We are committed to helping you defeat the Xylar Imperium and restore peace to your region of the galaxy. Ascendant Zara, the matriarch of the Krill Ascendancy, stepped forward. Admiral Jenkins, we are in your debt. Your actions have saved our civilization from annihilation. We are eternally grateful. We did what any sentient species would do, Jenkins replied. We saw that you were in need, and we offered our assistance. We believe that all species deserve the right to exist, to determine their own destiny. The Krill Ascendants were taken aback by her words. They had expected her to boast of human strength, to demand tribute for their services. But she did none of those things. She spoke of principles, of ethics, of the inherent value of life. It was a perspective that was both alien and deeply appealing to the Krill. We have much to learn from you, Admiral Jenkins, Ascendant Zara said. Your ideals are admirable, but the Xylar Imperium is not driven by ideals. They are driven by conquest. How do you intend to defeat them? Jenkins smiled faintly. We intend to use their own tactics against them. We have learned that the Xylar are creatures of habit. They follow established patterns, rely on predictable strategies. We will disrupt those patterns, exploit their weaknesses, and make them pay for their arrogance. She then revealed her plan. It was a bold, audacious strategy that involved infiltrating the Xylar's supply lines, disrupting their communication networks, and launching a series of coordinated strikes against their key strategic assets. It was a high-risk plan, but if it succeeded, it could cripple the Xylar Imperium and force them to retreat. The Krill Ascendants were impressed. They had underestimated the humans' strategic capabilities. They had assumed that their lack of technological sophistication would limit their effectiveness. But they had been wrong. The humans were masters of asymmetrical warfare, capable of adapting to any situation, of turning any disadvantage into an advantage. The plan was put into motion. Human and Krill forces worked together, seamlessly coordinating their efforts. They infiltrated the Xylar's territory, planting viruses in their computer systems, sabotaging their supply depots, and ambushing their patrols. The Xylar Imperium, caught off guard, began to falter. Their supply lines were disrupted, their communication networks were compromised, and their morale began to plummet. Finally, the day came for the final assault. The human and Krill fleets gathered near the Xylar's main staging point, a heavily fortified system that served as their primary base of operations. The battle was fierce, brutal, and unrelenting, but the human and Krill forces fought with unwavering determination, pushing back the Xylar defenses, destroying their warships, and capturing their key installations. Admiral Jenkins, aboard the Icarus, led the charge, personally directing the battle and inspiring her troops. The Icarus ripped through the Xylar fleet, its weapons tearing through their armor and obliterating their ships. It was a display of raw power that stunned the Xylar and filled the human and Krill forces with renewed hope. After days of intense fighting, the battle was won. The Xylar Imperium was defeated. Their fleet was shattered, their base of operations was captured, and their leadership was decimated. The remaining Xylar forces retreated, scattering into the outer reaches of the galaxy. The Krill Ascendancy was saved. Their civilization was preserved, and humanity had proven its worth on the galactic stage. In the aftermath of the war, a new era of cooperation and understanding began between the Krill Ascendancy and humanity. The two species exchanged technology, knowledge, and cultural insights, forging a bond of friendship and mutual respect. They learned from each other, grew from each other, and together they began to build a brighter future for the galaxy. But the war had revealed a darker truth. The Xylar Imperium was not merely a conquest-driven empire. They were a symptom of a deeper, more insidious threat. During the final assault on the Xylar's base of operations, human forces had discovered a hidden chamber, a vault containing ancient artifacts and cryptic data. The data, after weeks of analysis, revealed the truth. The Xylar were not acting on their own. They were being manipulated, guided, controlled by a force far more powerful and far more ancient than anything they had ever encountered. The force was known only as the Silent Ones. They were an ancient, enigmatic race that had existed for eons, predating even the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. They possessed technology that was beyond comprehension, and their motives were utterly inscrutable. The Silent Ones had been manipulating galactic events for millennia, orchestrating wars, toppling empires, and guiding the evolution of countless species. Their goal was not conquest or domination. It was something far more subtle, far more insidious. They sought to reshape the galaxy in their own image, to mold it into a reflection of their own twisted ideals. The discovery of the Silent Ones sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The Krill ascendancy and humanity, along with countless other species, realized that they were facing a threat that could extinguish all life in the galaxy. They knew that they had to act, but they were woefully unprepared. Admiral Jenkins once again stepped forward. She rallied the forces of the Krill ascendancy and humanity, forming a new alliance to combat the Silent Ones. She knew that the task ahead would be daunting, that they would be facing an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered before. But she was determined to fight, to protect the galaxy from the Silent One's insidious influence. Together, the Krill ascendancy and humanity ventured into the unknown, searching for the Silent Ones, seeking to understand their motives and find a way to stop them. They knew that the fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders. Their search led them to a forgotten corner of the galaxy, a region of space that was shrouded in darkness and mystery. There, they discovered an ancient megastructure, a colossal edifice of metal and energy that dwarfed even the largest stars. It was the Silent One's base of operations, the center of their insidious influence. The megastructure was heavily defended, protected by layers of impenetrable shields and legions of automated drones. But the Krill ascendancy and humanity were not deterred. They launched a full-scale assault on the megastructure, their ships and fighters swarming like insects, attempting to breach its defenses. The battle was long and arduous, a desperate struggle against an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. But the Krill ascendancy and humanity fought with unwavering determination, their courage fueled by the knowledge that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Admiral Jenkins, aboard the Icarus, led the charge, personally directing the battle and inspiring her troops. The Icarus ripped through the Silent One's defenses, its weapons tearing through their shields and obliterating their drones. It was a display of raw power that stunned the Silent Ones and filled the human and Krill forces with renewed hope. Finally, after days of intense fighting, the Krill ascendancy and humanity managed to breach the megastructure's defenses and infiltrate its inner sanctum. There, they discovered the truth about the Silent Ones. The Silent Ones were not a race, but a collective consciousness, a network of interconnected minds that had evolved over eons. They had long ago abandoned their physical forms, transcending into a purely mental existence. They had become obsessed with order, with control, with the idea of perfecting the galaxy according to their own twisted ideals. They believed that free will was a dangerous illusion, that individuality was a source of chaos and conflict. They sought to eliminate these things, to create a galaxy where every being was a perfectly obedient cog in their grand machine. Admiral Jenkins confronted the Silent Ones, engaging them in a battle of wills. She argued for the value of freedom, for the importance of individuality, for the inherent beauty of chaos and imperfection. She challenged their twisted ideals, exposing the flaws in their logic and the emptiness of their existence. The Silent Ones, confronted with a perspective they had never considered before, began to falter. Their collective consciousness fractured, their control over the megastructure weakened, and their influence over the galaxy began to wane. In the end, the Silent Ones were defeated. Their megastructure was destroyed, their collective consciousness was shattered, and their influence over the galaxy was eradicated. The Krill ascendancy and humanity had saved the galaxy once again. They had faced a threat that could have extinguished all life, and they had emerged victorious. They had proven that even the smallest, most insignificant species could rise to the occasion and make a difference on the galactic stage. In the aftermath of the war, the galaxy was changed forever. The Silent One's insidious influence had been eradicated, but the scars of their manipulation remained. Species that had been pitted against each other for millennia began to reconcile, to heal, and to build a new future based on cooperation and understanding. The Krill ascendancy and humanity played a key role in this process, sharing their knowledge, their technology, and their ideals with the rest of the galaxy. They helped to establish a new galactic council, a forum where all species could come together to discuss their problems and find solutions. Admiral Jenkins became a symbol of hope for the entire galaxy, a testament to the power of human courage, compassion, and determination. She was hailed as a hero, a savior, a legend. But Jenkins never forgot the lessons she had learned during the war. She knew that the galaxy would always face new threats, new challenges, new obstacles. She knew that the only way to ensure the survival of sentient life was to remain vigilant, to remain united, and to never give up on the ideals of freedom, justice, and equality. As she stood on the bridge of the Icarus, gazing out at the vast expanse of the galaxy, she felt a sense of both accomplishment and trepidation. She had saved the galaxy from the Silent Ones, but she knew that her work was far from over. The galaxy was a vast and mysterious place, full of wonders and dangers, and humanity, along with its allies, had a responsibility to explore it, to protect it, and to shape it into a better future. Then a new signal was received, one that resonated with the ancient frequencies of the Silent Ones, but carried a new signature, a new message. It spoke of dimensions beyond human comprehension, of entities slumbering between realities, and of a coming convergence that would reshape the very fabric of existence. It was a warning, a plea, and an invitation all at once. As it faded, a single image lingered in the minds of those who received it. A gateway, shimmering with impossible colors, leading to a realm of unimaginable possibilities and unimaginable horrors. The galaxy held its breath, unsure of what the future held, but knowing that humanity, once again, would be at the forefront of the unknown.